This is Keys to the Shop, episode 88. Today we're talking with the 2018 U.S. Barista Champion, Cole McBride. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFiorio. I'm your host for the show. So happy to have you along. Today, we're honored to have Cole McBride on the show, the newly crowned U.S. Barista Champion, Cole McBride. A great conversation today talking about Cole's career in competition and in coffee, talking about what drives him as a professional, what he's taken away from competitions and applied to his professional life behind the bar. And there's a lot here. This episode is just absolutely packed with great takeaways. So I really hope that you walk away with something that inspires you. I felt really great after this conversation. So looking forward to sharing that with you. Now, before we get started here, we do want to thank our sponsors here at Keys to the Shop. Really thankful for their support, making Keys to the Shop possible. And I want to start by thanking Prima Coffee. So Prima Coffee is a specialty coffee equipment supplier, and they're based out of Louisville, Kentucky. Now, from the beginning of their company, they set out to make the best coffee brewing equipment available to the general public. And their focus is on curating the best equipment for every need that their customers might have. That goes from grinders to espresso machines to under-counter refrigeration, pretty much anything you could need for setting up a coffee bar for your home or professionally. So go to prima-coffee.com and check out what they have to offer. They have a lot of support. They have a lot of resources that they put together in forms of videos and blogs and how-tos to help you really use the equipment to the best of its ability and the best of your ability. They really pride themselves and put an emphasis on having the expertise to help their customers get the right gear to fit every situation. So definitely go and check out prima-coffee.com for all of your coffee equipment needs. And my thanks to Prima Coffee for their support of Keys to the Shop. Now, also, I would love to thank Pacific Foods for their support. They are the ones behind the Barista series line of non-dairy performance beverages, which are designed specifically for professional baristas and the standards for excellence they demand. So whether it's almond, soy, coconut, rice, or oat milk, its ability to take the heat from steaming and produce an unmatched silky texture and keep the flavor balance focused on coffee, that makes it a perfect choice for your cafe's menu. They are a huge supporter of the specialty coffee industry and community, and they've demonstrated that by their commitment to listening to and serving the needs of real specialty coffee professionals. So go to pacificfoods.com, that's pacificfoods.com, and find out how the Barista series line of non-dairy beverages can help your cafe step up its non-dairy game. And thank you very much to Pacific Foods for your support. So today on Keys to the Shop, we get to chat with Cole McBride, the new U.S. Barista Champion. It's been a long time coming for Cole, 7 years of hard work and dedication to competition and becoming better as a professional. And a lot happens in 7 years, and we explore a lot of that in this conversation. Cole really explores his motivations, the lessons that he has learned, how he's changed over the years, and gives some amazing key takeaways that I think you're going to find very, very helpful for your professional career. He has been competing for 7 years, but he's been in coffee for 15 years and just serving primarily in the role of a barista or in direct support of the role of a barista. Everything from Director of Education and Lead Sales Manager for Visions Espresso in Seattle to Director of Hospitality Manager / Barista / everything else that you can think of involving coffee for Publicus, an award-winning coffee bar restaurant in Las Vegas. Cole has found himself behind the bar advocating for the role of a barista for these 15 years of his career, and you can really sense his passion for this, just from watching his competitions and especially from listening to this conversation. Now, over these 7 years, Cole has been very successful in competition, placing in the finals of the regionals several times. He has won the Western Conference Barista Championship, and he is a 2-time USBC finalist, including coming in second in 2015. So as Cole has pursued and advocated for the role of the barista and improved his craft as a barista in the industry, he has also done that in parallel on the stage in the U.S. Coffee Championships and Barista Championships. So this win is definitely a sweet one for Cole, and it was great to get to see him take home the gold, so to speak. Absolutely thrilled for him. And yeah, so this conversation is just packed with great stuff, and I want to get you right to it. So let's get to our conversation with the U.S. Barista Champion 2018, Cole McBride. Well, hey, Cole McBride. Welcome to Keys to the Shop.
Hello.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you so much.
U.S. Barista Champion. How does that sound?
I guess it sounds great. I'm pretty stoked to have finally won, and it still kind of seems a little unreal at times. But when I wake up, I get to see the trophy, and then it seems a little more real, and I get to go to WBC. I'm pretty stoked.
Yeah, that's happening pretty quickly.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's good though. Having a fast turnaround is good, in my opinion. I get to keep my head in the game.
Nice. And yeah, you said finally, you've been competing for 7 years now. That's quite a while to just keep at it, right?
Yeah, it is. 7 years is a long time, but to be really honest, I kind of expected it to take somewhere around this amount of time, or at least I had the expectation that it might take that long. The first year I competed, I didn't know anything about these competitions. People had just said maybe I'd be into it. And I gave it a shot and didn't do very well. Didn't know what it was all about at all. And back then, you didn't have to qualify for USBC. You could compete, and if you signed up for USBC, you essentially could go.
That's right.
So I did a regional, and then didn't do very well, and decided why not do USBC and just get the experience. So I did that as well, and I didn't do very well in either. But then the next year, I spent a lot of time researching it, talking to friends. I talked to a lot of people, like Chris Baca and Charles Babinski and Trevor Corlett. And each of those conversations kind of led to this idea of like, you really have to put a lot into this. You really have to read the rules, and you really have to spend a lot of time practicing. And as I thought about it and looked at the people that were doing well, it looked like most people were taking somewhere between 5 and 9 years to win. And so that after that year, I kind of had that expectation that it could take somewhere between that amount of time. And for me, it was 7 years.
I mean, that must be pretty helpful, because if you didn't have that in mind, you might just give up.
Yeah, I think that it's easy to want to like either give up or take a break, or something I heard many years is, oh, you should take a year off and you should judge, or you should take a year off and like think about like what you really want to do. And I think that that's not necessarily the worst advice, depending on who you are. I'm very happy that I like listened to myself and knew that that was not going to be ideal for me. I don't think that for me, taking a year off to judge would have helped me be a better competitor. And I think that might be true for other people. But what I think, I needed was to be persistent, to continue pushing myself, and to continue taking the feedback from the judges, and to keep pushing and to keep working at it. And it has worked out for me. And so I think one of the big lessons I've learned is to really know yourself and to really listen to yourself.
Wise words. So all this time, what's driving you is to just be the best you can be, just improve and learn. I mean, what's underneath that? Why is that in particular so important? Just, for you personally, but also generally for the work of a barista.
Yeah, I think this year the presentation I did really wraps around a lot of that, and I'm going to expand upon that more in going into WBC. But when I first got into coffee, I was a barista, and the first part of being a barista that I really, really fell in love with was connecting to people. It was the service side and how you could change someone's day by having a 30-second conversation and a cup of coffee. Shortly after that, I fell in love with coffee itself. And I really decided pretty early on that this is what I was going to do. I was going to make coffee for the rest of my life. And I think when I decide I'm going to do something, for better or worse, maybe I'm a little stubborn about it, and I really have a high expectation of myself. And so for many years before I even started competing, I would seek out jobs or roles that would help me be able to grow and help me be able to learn. And I honestly, like with the competitions, what kept me going through them is, I talked about this in my exit interview with Layla, is that I had hit a wall in what I could learn from companies and what the industry had to offer. I've read all the books. I've read the blogs. I've had the great opportunities to work in labs and to have mentors and trainers. And at some point, I just really think that, you're going to hit a wall, but there is so much more you can actually learn. And this format, whether you love it or hate it or have grievances with it, if you really pour yourself into it, I don't think it has a wall. Like you could probably do this format for 20 years straight. And every year, I really believe that you could learn something more and you could become better at your craft. With that, the other thing that has kept me going is that I've been very passionate about spreading the love of specialty coffee and seeing what it's done to change people's lives, not just in the industry, but people that just drink it. And becoming an ambassador to me really means that I represent the industry, but I also want to use that to be able to connect with more people from not just the United States, but all over the world, and hopefully be an example of what's so great about specialty coffee and connecting with people and brewing amazing beverages that can change someone's day and hopefully make the world a better place one cup at a time, however corny that sounds.
Oh, that sounds great. I don't think it sounds corny. So it's like the connection that you make with a customer as a barista working in the cafe, the same kind of connection you can make with those working within the industry to help us just become better at our craft. And that's the position you're in now, an ambassador for specialty coffee as the champion. So, in this competition season of yours, like 7 years of pursuing this, like all of us, over the course of 7 years, we take on different roles within specialty coffee, and we have different opportunities, like you were mentioning, to sort of influence our customers or serve in different capacities. But we become different people over the course of time. Basically, life just doesn't stop because you're competing. So I wonder, what have been some of the most critical professional moments in your career that have taken place over the course of your competition over these years?
Yeah, definitely. There's been two specific roles that have really, really opened up my ability to, one, be able to compete and have influenced it. The first of which is the first, 3 seasons I competed were with Visions Espresso. And, going to Visions was one of the first jobs I had that was not a trainer or directly related to brewing coffee on a daily basis. It was an education role, is what it started out as. And so I was teaching people how to make coffee on various levels and doing consulting with shops. And that grew into also doing sales. And Visions was just such a big impact because during that time, I was allowed to travel to Coffee Fest 3 times a year. I competed in the Coffee Fest World Latte Art Open 3 times a year for 3 years. And it took, nice. I think around my 10th time, I finally won that.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not like by any means the best at latte art, but having that opportunity to be at those trade shows and connect with people really gave me a lot of ideas. Having conversations that frequently with people that are passionate about coffee. Also, the Visions and myself went to all of the barista camps for almost 3 years, except for the first one. And those events were just like amazing. I mean, it was incredible being able to go to those and connect with people again. And just so many ideas would come out of those events. And I was always so inspired when I came back from those camps and the connections I would make with people. And, you know, that was huge. So traveling a lot in those 3 years and being able to get to go to different shops, connect with coffee professionals all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast, and just going to all the events, it really opened up my perspective on coffee and what I wanted to do. From there, the second role that really shaped a lot of like what I want to do for moving forward was taking a role in Las Vegas, Nevada, at a restaurant and coffee bar named Publicus. This role was kind of ever changing, originally being somewhat of a general manager role of the front of the house. So it was a restaurant and coffee bar. And I designed the service style and the coffee experience from the ground up. And what was really great about that was being able to take a lot of what I did in competition, having developed partnerships with Cafe Imports and Belton Ross, and design a coffee program in my own vision. So I sourced all the coffees with imports. They were then roasted by Belton. And I really got to just really explore like serving more signature drink-like beverages, being able to create all my own syrups, make our own almond milk, do everything in-house, and really just do everything to the best that we possibly could, given the resources we had. That ended up being a role that really transformed into running the coffee service and keeping the service level really high. It was a really tough role though. I mean, when you're opening a new business, there's so many things that can happen and go on. And it ended up being a thing where I would, on average, be there 6 days a week on the bar, 12 to 16 hours a day. And this, yeah, and this is like no exaggeration, like not even a little bit. There were many weeks where I would work 7 days a week. And if I was off the floor, like if I worked a day not standing on my feet for under 12 hours, like that would be a short day. That would be a short day.
Wow.
And that was including during competition cycle. And so what was really great about that though is that I really got to see how you can bring people into coffee and how quickly people can become really amazing coffee professionals, given the fact that they're trusted and given the opportunity to excel. Some really great baristas came out of Publicus. And I think a lot of that is due to simply being there and being with them and guiding them. We didn't have a large pool of experience to hire from, so everyone at that shop was brand new to coffee. And that experience was wonderful. It was exhausting and amazing, and I learned a lot. So I would say that those are the two roles that really really shaped a lot of my professional ability to be able to do well at competition.
Wow. I mean, those are pretty immersive roles. Just getting to be a part of the wider industry through visions, and then so immersive with the hours that you were working and the mentorship that you were giving at Publicus. And I have interacted with you in both of those seasons of your career, and you've always had a very intentional approach to what you're doing. Like you said in the beginning, if you want to do something, you chose to do coffee, you choose to do something, you're going to try to be the best at it and do very well. Certainly Publicus was a great reputation, and your work shone through very heavily. So a lot of respect there. How did this competition, going through competition, how did it influence what you did in the cafe? What were the takeaways that you saw yourself sort of employing in the cafe? Was it organization? Was it service style? How did things get practical at the bar level from USBC?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And oftentimes when I talk with people, especially people that are in leadership roles at companies, and we're talking about competition, they'll often say competition's great and all, but they're really confused about what benefit they might get. What's the value other than some marketing? And I can directly say that if you have a competitor that really pours themselves into competition, they are going to come back to your shop with practical things to help on a daily basis. I would say the very first thing is that you're going to learn to be very efficient in everything that you do. You basically cannot be a great barista competitor unless you are highly efficient. And some people are already good at this, and they've had good mentors and good trainers, but through competing, I can almost guarantee you will get better at it. You will know how many steps you are taking from the espresso machine to the judge's table. You will know how many inches a plate is set down and what effect that might have on the 1 or 2 seconds that you gain is so much time in competition. If you can shrink a movement here and a movement there and get yourself 15 seconds in comp, that's a game changer for some competitors. No joke, 10 to 15 seconds is a ton of time.
Sure.
And it's not like you lose that when you go back to the bar. You can't turn it off. And by being that efficient, it's going to affect everyone you work around. They're going to become more efficient. And 10 to 15 seconds here multiplied by, however many employees you have, however many hours you're open, ends up being a lot of time. And that ends up being a lot of reduced wait times. It ends up being a lot of things. So being efficient is one thing. I would say the next thing is that when you're competing, you become so attuned to your coffees that you get to a point where waste is almost nothing. There's almost no waste. Most barista competitors are probably wasting less than a half a gram of coffee for all of their drinks. Probably quite a bit less than that, actually. And that's another thing that you can't just turn off. You get to the point where your distribution is perfect every time. You tamp flat every time. You don't, jam the portafilter into the machine hard enough to break a seal. That doesn't happen anymore. You're so focused on it being perfect that when you come back to the bar, you're not wasting shots and you're not wasting coffee, and you're always dialed in. When a coffee pro comes in, you're not needing to pull shots 12 times to see if you can make it better, because the next shot out of that grinder is dialed and they're going to get that. And so it definitely has a direct effect on efficiency, a direct effect on quality. And I would also say that it has a direct effect on your overall awareness. Just knowing what's going on around you and by being hyper focused in the competition environment, I definitely feel that those baristas, when they're in their cafes, they have a sense of like what's going on around them at all times. And so I think that there's so many things that the competition can provide a daily barista. And I would say that like not every single barista needs to compete to pick those skills up. But if you were working with someone that has competed, you will probably pick up a lot of what they've learned from the practical side of things. And so I think there's a lot of value. And if there's any like shop owners out there that are listening, company owners that are like on the fence about like what the value is, you're going to get your ROI. You know, you're going to get a return on investment. And I really believe that. You know, I think that we need to be supporting these competitors, particularly baristas. Support your baristas. Like, yes, your trainers are great. Your managers are awesome. Your roasters are great. But, you know, it's the United States barista competition. I mean, anyone's allowed to sign up and compete, and I support that. But I'm really a big advocate for baristas getting this opportunity. You know, help them with everything they need. You know, let them take a day off a week and pay them for that so they can train without being stressed out.
Right.
You know, buy all their small wares. Like, don't just do their sign up fees and their plane ticket. You know, take that burden off of them and let them really shine. And they're going to be so grateful, and you're going to get a lot out of it. They might move on to do a different role in 2 years or 1 year or whatever. But when they return from that competition, you know, let them integrate what they've learned. Give them the opportunity to improve the cafe, because their experience is going to make your business better. And I 100% believe in that.
Well said. Well said. I love all of the takeaways that you just listed there. They're basically, to use the score sheets as an example, they're a multiplier category in your business, because you have less efficient baristas, you have a less impactful service in your cafe. So the ROI that you're talking about for owners, yeah, a barista might move on a year or two from the time they compete, who knows? But the culture of your store will be altered in a positive way that will continue to yield fruit back to your business.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we've been talking about your career and learning and growing, and that was a theme of your presentation. Intentionality was one of the things that was a major theme, at least from what I picked up. And it was kind of centered around the idea of what you were doing with the La Papaya, the Ecuadorian coffee that you were using. And the comment that you made was that it was planted with the intention of being natural, of being a natural. Can you unpack that for us a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first thing to say about La Papaya is that there's not one single thing on Juan Pena, the owner, manager, and producer of the coffee, on his farm, La Papaya, that is not intentional. I visiting there 3 years ago and being lucky enough to go back next week, you know, and working with Juan's coffees for 3 years. Every single thing he does, from the time he plants the coffee to the fertilizers he used, to the varieties that he's chosen, to the areas of the farm that he plants in, to how far the coffees are spaced, to the processing, to the drying, to every single step is with a level of intention that is just really mind-boggling. And to give an example of like what I mean by it was planted with that intention is when I visited his farm 3 years ago and we climbed up the hill that his coffees are on, we get to the top and he has 3 water reservoirs that make it to where he can water every plant individually, and gives him the ability to force bloom his farm because in the southern part of Ecuador, there is no rainy season. So to be able to get a harvest, they have to simulate rain. And I presented this about 2 years ago in Atlanta. by installing what I call water cannons that shoot a fine mist out over the farm. He simulates rain and it force blooms the coffees. So we're up on the top of the farm, and after we pass the reservoirs, there's a section that's planted, and they're newer coffees, and Juan's very excited about them. And he's like, yeah, these aren't ready to produce fruit yet, but like this is, and he has different sections labeled off, and one section is called Block 7. And this is a section where he, at this time, was doing a little bit of experimental processing, as far as like experimenting with naturals and honeys, but not on a really big level. Most of his coffees were washed or eco-pulped. And so, and those are the coffees that I've been working with. So he had been producing some naturals, but this year was the first year that I worked with Belton and Cafe Imports to purchase some of the natural process. And this was from a section of the farm that he had planted, knowing that when it was ready, he was going to make it a natural. Mm-hmm. So he had planted the Typica variety at the highest elevation in a specific area, knowing that he wanted to make this section a natural. And really what I mean there is like, and talking about that intention is I was trying to, without going into having a super farm heavy presentation, I wanted the judges, the audience, and everyone to know that in a simple statement that everything that Juan does is intentional. And this was not a farm heavy presentation at all. At the same time, by making that statement, I was hoping to make it clear that everything that is happening there is done with the utmost care and intention to be able to create this beautiful cup.
Nice. So the flavors of this coffee coming out of that intention is what you're trying to capture. Throughout the presentation, you use this coffee also in your signature beverage and your espresso. The espresso, in order to really maximize the flavor, you utilized a pretty intentional trick yourself with the frozen cups. Has that ever been done before? I'm not positive. Do you know? I don't know if it had been done directly in that way. Mm-hmm. I do think there has been chilled cups. I don't know if anyone has ever all the way frozen them like with dry ice. And so I can't say 100% for sure. I do know that people have done some different things to get their espresso down pretty cool. I think there have been some ice bath techniques and such. Yeah. I can't say for sure if I'm the first to do frozen cups or not. Someone may have done this. Oh gosh, it seems like it. But it was really kind of riveting to see the video where the steam is coming off of the outside of the cups. The espresso is so great. Totally. And then what makes me wonder is first the tactile that the judges get from it. I know you made a comment in your presentation to the judges about that. Was that something that you were pretty worried about?
Anytime you're doing something like a little bit out there, there's a level of worry for sure. I think that what I wanted the judges to know is that this was going to really bring out specific flavors in the coffee. Particularly, it made the flavor note soft pineapple. It made it more clear, and it really helped the coffee's flavor balance a lot, and making it really obvious like what's going on with the coffee. The other thing it did was it really helped the tactile become very, very specific. It was really extremely silky. And the coffee was a medium bodied coffee, and the tactile was really dead on. What I guess I was more concerned about was that the cup itself, when you first, bring that to your lips, it's cold. You know what I mean? It's like it's still like not like so sure. Cold it's going to stick to your lips, but it's like really cold. And the espresso is still about 110 degrees. So it's warm. And there's definitely there's this like sensory experience going on there that's kind of strange. And, I didn't want them to be in a state of shock. Fortunately, they all loved it and thought it worked really well with the coffee. And so it worked out very well for me. It's something that I've experimented with over the years, and have done in a few different settings, and it doesn't work with all coffees, but in this particular case, it worked really well. And it really just made the flavors come out really nice. It created an awesome tactile experience. And I think just making sure the judges understood that it was going to be an interesting sensory experience really went a long way with them.
Nice. Brilliant. So going from that to, that intentional, like, I'm going to cool this down, I'm going to maximize all of these flavors, I'm going to sort of morph some of them into a more pleasing flavor. And going from that to the cap round where you introduced a blend, which not everybody uses a blend. And I would say maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe I'm not following as closely as I should, but I think single origin tends to be favored in the USBC, at least at this level. What kind of caused you to say, you know what, we're going to go right from like super heavy single origin, this like down to a frozen cup to a blend for the milk course?
Yeah, blends are something I'm really passionate about to start that off with. I think that blends have gotten a really bad rap over the years.
Agreed. Yeah.
And I don't get it at all. Single origins are awesome and I love them and I think they're wonderful. And I think the direction that the format has gone, it's very difficult to do a blend, particularly for your espresso course, but really for any of the courses, it's difficult. I started down this route of just deciding that I wanted to challenge myself to do well with a blend in at least one of the categories. Last year at USBC, I did. And it went over fairly well, but this year I pushed very hard, and I used one of the same coffees to blend with that I did the year before and added a third in. So 3 to 4 coffee blends are generally my favorites. Most of the blends I've designed have 3 coffees. This year, each of the coffees was a natural. Where the year before I did a natural and a washed. And what I was really looking to do was create like a totally new experience in that cap. So I took the La Papaya and I blended it with equal parts to a coffee from Burundi that is roasted by Olympia Coffee Roasters. Comes from the Long Miles Coffee Project. And I blended that with another coffee from Olympia from the Yirgacheffe region in Ethiopia. And each of these coffees was really different. So you have the La Papaya that's tropical. It's very, in a lot of ways, not a traditional flavors of a natural. Like it didn't really have any berry notes or red fruit or blueberry. It didn't have any of that. Right. It was more like grapefruity and tropical and pineapple. And so I took that and blended it with this coffee from Burundi that had like these really awesome kind of like brandy notes and like a little bit of a mixed berry thing going on, but it kind of had that like, that kind of boozy aspect that some naturals have that some people don't like at all. I tend to find this a really exciting flavor, especially when you blend with it. It just has it creates a complexity in the cup that you just can't get from a washed coffee or most naturals that are more traditional. And so I took that and blended it again with a very traditional, like what most people would think of, like this is a natural. So the Yirgacheffe was blueberry and milk chocolate and just like big berry flavors, super, super sugary sweet. And I think it's like what everyone would think of when you think natural from Ethiopia. And when these coffees came together, they just created this totally new experience. There was this really beautiful throughout the whole beverage flavor of strawberry. I think I called strawberry milk, but the judges kind of agreed that it was less artificial strawberry and more like of a fresh strawberry. So I didn't really do perfect on that flavor call, but it was really great, and it was really complex and it had like so much sweetness and it just had layers and layers of awesomeness to it. And, I think this goes right into my theme of like wanting to learn and push myself and, trying to reach a new level each time I do something. And, working on blends is not going to be easy. It's going to be hard. It is a risk. And, I felt really passionate about continuing down that route. And, I have a very strong feeling I'm going to continue in that direction for WBC.
So during this time, we're sort of incubating a signature drink preparation, your espresso champagne, which I thought just the double charge, to get it a sterile environment on the inside, and then the gradual cooling of the espresso. These are sort of these intentional steps to make a pretty simple signature beverage taste very, very good. Was simplicity and excellence in simplicity sort of a thing that you're thinking through when it comes to this signature beverage? Like, how did that come together?
Yeah, this drink I've been working on for years. I've actually presented variations of it in different years of competing with different ingredients, obviously, and different coffees. And it's been something that I've struggled with figuring out how to really make it as perfect as I want it to be. And this year, in being able to work with some fresh yuzu and knowing that I wanted to take some of the floral elements that come from pretty much all La Papaya coffees and bring it forward where it was being hidden through all the tropical and grapefruit notes in the coffee. I wanted to be able to transform the espresso to turn it into almost like a new product altogether. And, filtering coffee is not a new idea, especially through a paper filter. Removing crema is not a new idea. Where I think I really opened this beverage up this year was, approaching it differently. Not just simply removing some of the crema, removing all of the crema. So what this did is, and I went into it a little bit, but to open it up a little bit more, I drew my espresso out at a 1-3 ratio. So I drew it out really long. And this was for a few reasons, but the most of which is that, I wanted to reduce down those tropical notes and start to bring out some of the floral qualities in the coffee. Then running it through a paper filter, it took out some of the heavy sediment. It takes out some of the crema, but some of the crema is going to get through that paper filter. Before moving on to the real game changer of this drink, the carbon filter, I had found that putting the espresso into the carbon filter too hot, did not give a good flow rate to the filter. And if it stays stuck in the filter too long, it had a negative effect on the coffee. And not putting it through that filter at all, I was still running into issues with the carbon interacting with the heavy sediment in the crema negatively. So what I found was getting the temperature down a bit, worked the best. I also had found that if I chilled the coffee too much, that it also did not flow through the filter properly. And so what I found was bringing that temperature down to somewhere around 170, it flowed through the carbon filter more efficiently. Mm-hmm. So getting it through that filter, what you end up with is a completely changed espresso. There's no crema, there's no sediment. Some floral notes are available in there. It also takes the tropical notes that were still remaining and pushes them in a citrus-like direction. The acidity diminishes a little bit and the sweetness goes up. Because when that acidity has been brought down, the carbon filter didn't really affect the sweetness. So by really transforming that coffee, it allowed me to add very simple ingredients to it and completely bring about a new flavor. So all I really had to add at that point was a small amount of citric acid, a very small amount of fresh yuzu zest that I made a simple syrup with baker sugar. And by charging that with the CO2, it just created this really beautiful floral beverage where you have this new amazing note that's completely awesome, just honeysuckle. And I mean, it's just it's exactly like what you would think a honeysuckle smells like. So if you've ever smelled a honeysuckle, like that's what the drink tasted like. It also brought out this really great, like kind of like what I called like orange candy. Brought out this really beautiful orange note, like sugared orange, and a lot of really awesome grapefruit. So, I think that like when making these drinks, like there's a lot of things about it that seem simple. Getting to the point of like understanding how to construct the beverage took probably like 5 years. So it's like the actual construction, is not probably like the most difficult thing in the world, but it definitely, took a lot of time and energy, a lot of like tasting drinks that didn't taste that great, and getting it to be like effervescent and bubbly without being bitter took a lot of time to figure out how to do. So yeah, I was really, really stoked with it, really proud of it, and expect to see a version of that at WBC.
Awesome, man. It sounds excellent. You say it took about 5 years or so, and I'm thinking that all of what you're talking about sounds a lot like the cultivation of like a coffee plant. It takes about 4 some odd years to produce fruit, and a lot of what you're doing on stage, and in fact, maybe just on the bar as a barista, has to do with cultivating an experience that same kind of way that a farmer would cultivate the fruit of a coffee tree. And in the presentations that we see, yours included, there's these similarities that are drawn between the farmer and our coffee, and the connection between the two. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the importance of a barista or coffee professionals in general, especially baristas, keeping connected to and inspired by the farm, and how it really would benefit them to do so.
Yeah, I think that farmers and producers, they stay dedicated to a specific area. Most farmers and producers probably like don't go on to like do a lot of other roles in specialty coffee, and oftentimes baristas are sort of expected that like, especially at least in the United States, that this is not a career, that you do this for 2 to 3 years, and if you're really excited about it, you become a trainer, then you become a manager, then you become sales, then you become a roaster or whatever. But you don't stay being a barista. Yet, on where our coffee comes from, farmers pass down information from generation to generation. Some people get new into it like Juan, and they stay dedicated to it, and they keep figuring out a way to make it better. And they keep working harder and harder to find a better way to sort their coffee, to find a better area of their farm where it gets a different kind of light, or they dry it differently. And they're constantly looking to improve that. And they're doing one thing that I think baristas could really benefit from. They're really in this moment of like, they're very connected to the land and very connected to awareness. And so they have to listen to their land in a way. And I think that this is something that I think a lot of baristas, including myself and probably all baristas, could really learn from, is that when you're in your cafe, like be connected to the whole cafe, be aware of your surroundings, be aware of every little thing that's going on. Like, do everything with intention, like when you go to make a filter coffee, like put the filter into the basket with intention. Don't just like slam it in there. Like don't go on autopilot. Like no good farmer is on autopilot when they're planting things. They're in the moment. Like when you see them working, they're doing everything with intention. When you see pickers pick, at least the ones I've seen pick, they're doing it with such precision and skill, and like they're paying attention to what they're doing. There is no autopilot. And that's one of the things that I really don't like the terms like autopilot and muscle memory. Because these things are directly taking away from intention. Don't rely on your memory so much as being in the moment and being aware, doing things with intention. And I think that this is something that baristas can definitely learn or become more aware of from farmers and producers, because at the times I've been to Origin, this has been a huge takeaway that I've gotten, is that farmers and producers are just so connected to their land and to what they're doing. And when you become more aware of what you're doing, you're going to have a better result. You're going to have a better day. And you're going to love your work more.
Man, I'm kind of like fist pumping you from across the country right now, because I really appreciate that perspective, and we all need to have somewhat of a bigger perspective than just the troubles of the day or the bar or the spill or the customer. The same way that you said to yourself, well, this is going to take 7 years, so the little things, the bumps along the way didn't seem as bad. So if you draw inspiration from somebody who has such long-term dedication and intentionality to something, it makes sense that it would really create a more of a deep appreciation for and awareness of your current situation, where you can enjoy being a barista more, or I guess whatever you're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really believe that when you're really immersed in what you're doing, when you're not thinking about like what you're going to do next or what happened before, you're going to have a better day, I think, for sure. And I think that you're going to have a better experience with your guests. And I think it's going to for sure benefit the shop. And, hopefully, I would love to see a day where baristas can be considered a career in the United States. I mean, this would be a dream of mine. And I think to get there, there's a lot of work that has to be done in the power structures that are in coffee right now, but also there will be a lot of work that baristas will have to do as well. We're going to have to raise our level of everything to be able to make it a career that has a livable wage. And I think that one of the things that we could do in the meantime is get as much love and joy out of your daily work as you can, and being in the moment, being aware, and doing each and every action with intention is something you can do. And when I talk about this with baristas, this was something I spend a lot of time chatting with baristas and mentoring baristas at Publicus on. And I will say this: most of the people that I bring this up to kind of look at me a little bit like I'm crazy. Like when I'll give them examples, they'll be like, well, what do you eat? And I'll say, do you eat, like, every time you pull a shot, when you tap the pour filter, do it with intention, do it with awareness. Every time you put it into the machine, put it in with awareness. Every time you wipe the tray, do it with intention. Don't do anything without intention. And people look at me like, this is not possible. You can't work a shift this way. Well, I know that you can, because I've done it for a very long time now, and I've trained baristas. And when baristas take this seriously, it takes about 90 days for them to become how they work. And once they do, you can see the difference in when they come off the shift. They're less exhausted. They put, it's like you're putting more energy into it. You're actually putting less physical energy, because you're doing things in the moment. You're doing things with awareness. And when you do that, you're not exhausting yourself. And it also leads to just a lot of other benefits of quality and service and efficiency. But it's definitely something that I'm really passionate about. And again, give it a try if you're barista out there listening, and see if it works for you. I've seen a lot of positive benefits, but yeah, definitely when I bring it up, people look at me like I'm a little crazy, for sure.
I feel like we need a hashtag, like hashtag 90-day awareness challenge or something like that. The Cole McBride awareness challenge. I hope somebody really takes you up on that, or many people do. And this kind of leads into my last question for you, Cole. And perhaps you've already answered it here, but now that you've been crowned the champion, the U.S. Barista Championship, and are an ambassador for the U.S. specialty coffee, what is it that you want to help people see and experience in their professional journey? Like, what would make you the happiest to have helped people in?
Oh, yeah, I think that this is going to be something that I'm going to be learning and changing and thinking about this entire year. I think it's such a big question. It's so hard to like put into words, but for me, becoming champion is not just about like me being like, okay, I worked really hard for this. Let me reap all the rewards, do all this cool stuff, and like peace out, y'all. I really don't view it that way. I've talked about wanting to be the ambassador for years, and I'm going to do my very best. And I think the other day I responded to Mike Cannon on Twitter, or maybe no, it was Jenna from Everyman, and I'd said I'm going to do my best at this. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm probably going to get it wrong sometimes, and I'm going to learn from it. But I see myself as being an ambassador, as like an ambassador of specialty coffee, and specifically an ambassador of baristas. There's a lot of things that need to change in coffee, and there's a lot going on right now. But one of the things that I'm the most passionate about is advocating for baristas. I think there's so many things that we do as baristas that are so difficult and undervalued and oftentimes underrespected. And I want to uplift them and hopefully elevate this role to where we can start having a serious conversation about like this being a career. Starting to let people see the value of what having a 15-year veteran barista on your bar would look like. And that's a whole nother conversation. We could probably have a whole podcast on just like that one topic.
No doubt.
And I think that there's so many things going on in coffee right now that need to be highlighted more. And I'm going to do my best to represent the United States, not just at WBC, not just at another competition, but during this entire year of putting in work to learn more about myself and learning more about what I can do to uplift our industry, to make it more positive, and to see some real change. And again, I don't think I'm always going to get it right, and I'm going to make mistakes, and I'm really excited to learn from them. And I plan on not just being an ambassador for 1 year. I want to be an ambassador for baristas for the rest of my life. And so, I guess the shorter answer to that is that I want to see specialty coffee move forward and see baristas uplifted.
Love it. Well, I'm really happy to see you in this position, and especially just learning more about your perspective on the role and your road to get here. It's just really awesome to see. And really enjoyed chatting with you. How can people stay in touch with you as things progress towards WBC? How can they be in contact with Cole McBride?
Yeah, I think a lot of my information is out there because I've just never really changed over the years. But I would really encourage people to reach out to me, and a lot have. The amount of stories that I've been direct messaged by people I've never met and people that I've known for years or lost connection to over the last 2 weeks has been really incredible, and to be honest, kind of hard to keep up with. And I'm so grateful to hear all these stories and the support. And some of them are sad and some of them are really good. Some of them have, literally brought tears. And so I encourage you to continue to reach out. I'll do my best to respond and get back to you. And people can always email me if they have something that they really want to talk about in private. I will always keep it confidential unless otherwise noted. My email is colecoffeeseattle@gmail.com. You can reach out to me on Twitter at colecoffee. I'm on Instagram at cole_coffee. And you can always connect with me on Facebook, which I'm on quite a bit less. But yeah, reach out if you have questions, want to talk about things. I'm super interested in being there for you. The next month is going to be pretty crazy. I'm going to Ecuador. Hopefully crossing my fingers, getting some new coffee from La Papaya because I don't have enough of the natural to compete with. And then I'm going to be in Kansas City with Pete Licata and Holly Bastin. And then I have a family reunion to go to, and then I got to go to Amsterdam. And so, it's going to be pretty wild. But again, I'll do my best to get back to people, and I want to be there for you, and I really mean that. So, reach out anytime. I want to have that conversation with all of you, and I'm an open book.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cole, for taking the time to talk with us here at the show, and I just really have enjoyed chatting with you, and it's made me want to be a better barista for sure. And no doubt that's true for all of us listening. So congratulations again, and really looking forward to seeing you at the WBC. And this was great.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me and being able to have this conversation.
Well, everybody, I think that this conversation was just a fantastic perspective on the work of the barista. I'm really energized and looking forward to seeing how Cole continues to advocate for and uplift the role of the barista. It brings up so many great points in this conversation. Everything from the dream of having the barista as a career and what we need to do, the work that still needs to be done to change the power structures that are present in our current businesses to make that happen, to what we can do right now as baristas to become aware and develop ourselves in our positions currently, to do everything mindfully, to do things with intention. That's the big takeaway for me, I think, was, even as I got done with the interview with Cole and I was entering into a closing shift, I was like thinking this has to translate into something that I do with my hands, that I do physically on the bar, or else I haven't learned anything, or else I'm not really going to absorb the information. It's easy enough to listen to a podcast. It's easy enough to read a book, but putting the principles into practice on a daily basis is such it's a challenge, because we do, like Cole said, there's this muscle memory that we kind of fall into where our mind checks out, our body does the work, and we walk away actually not that much better than when we started. So I feel like this 90-day challenge of intentionality is a really great one. So maybe we should take that seriously and put forth the effort to increase our intentionality with every little thing that we do behind the bar. So that's my main takeaway from it. I would love to hear what you took away from this. Definitely when we post this on Instagram, this episode, go ahead and comment what your favorite part of this show was. And my thanks to Cole for coming on the show, sharing his story and his perspective, and inspiring us with his words. Congrats, Cole, again, and best of luck to you at the Worlds. We'll all be rooting for you here at Keys to the Shop. So if you want the show notes for this episode, you can go to keystotheshop.com, and when you do so, you can go to the sidebar, and there'll be a place for you to enter your email address. And when you do, you're going to be signed up to receive a weekly newsletter that has the show notes in it. And those show notes are basically the key takeaways and things from the episode that are the main points made by myself and the guest, and links also to resources mentioned. So if somebody mentions a link or a book or a video or something, those will be included in that email as well. So go to keystotheshop.com to find that. And if you want to reach out to me, if you have questions or comments, feedback about the show, or if you're interested in training and consultation through Keys to the Shop, you can just reach out to me at chris@keystotheshop.com. That's CHRIS@keystotheshop.com. I would love to hear from you. You can also reach out to me via phone at 502-715-1465. And so today's show is a wrap. Thank you for taking the time to be here with me, and take what you've learned in this episode, apply it to your life wherever you find yourself in coffee, and see the difference that it makes. And as always, I hope that this episode truly has given you keys to the shop.